Wren Copeland was scrubbing the floor of the small forge cottage she had inherited from her late blacksmith husband when the young Lakota rider stopped at her gate at 11 in the morning and would not, for a full minute, dismount. She was 31. She had been widowed of Amos Copeland 14 months, since Amos had taken a fever in September of the previous year. The town of Beaver Ford had, since Amos's death, quietly withdrawn from her. She was a childless widow of 31, with a forge she could not run, and a small house at the end of the road. The town's opinion was that she should have gone home to Missouri long since. She had not gone. She had a small pension the forge's oldest customer, the Circle T Ranch, sent her every month for keeping Amos's tools in condition. She had her mother's herb book. She had, in the corner of the cottage, a small, careful collection of jars. The Lakota rider on the horse at her gate was maybe 26. He was in a plain wool coat and a hat, and his hair was long in a single braid. He had a plain deerskin bag across his saddle. He said, in careful English, "Ma'am, are you Wren Copeland?" She said, "I am." He said, "My name is Standing Elk. I have ridden 3 days from the Rosebud. Sunrise Wolf, the chief of my grandmother's band, is dying. He has been failing 4 months. The band's healer has done everything he knows and cannot say why. 2 months ago, I rode to Fort Robinson to fetch the army surgeon. The army surgeon has looked. He cannot say why. The Presbyterian missionary at Fort Robinson said that a plain white blacksmith's widow at Beaver Ford knew plant medicine and had once cured his son of a wasting sickness when his own doctor could not. He said your name. He said if the chief is beyond his own healer, he should call for you. I have ridden here to ask." Wren Copeland sat back on her heels with the scrub brush in her hand. She said, "Standing Elk, sit down under the porch. I will fetch water and coffee. Then you will tell me the chief's symptoms plainly, and I will decide." Standing Elk got off his horse. He tied it. He sat under the porch. She brought him coffee and a slice of Amos's mother's ginger cake she had made yesterday. He said, at the porch step over the coffee, "Sunrise Wolf is 58. He was wounded in the shoulder by a bullet at the Battle of Slim Buttes 11 years ago. The bullet was taken out. The wound healed for a time. In the spring of this year, the shoulder began to ache. In the summer, it began to swell. He grew tired. He would not eat. He would not walk. He sleeps most days. He has lost 40 pounds. His gums are pale. His breath is thin. He is not feverish. The pain is not sharp. It is a heaviness. That is the shape of it." Wren Copeland closed her eyes. She said, "Standing Elk. It is lead. A small piece was left in him at the surgery in 76. It has been slowly poisoning him for 11 years. It has come to the point where it will kill him unless the piece is drawn." Standing Elk said, "You are sure?" She said, "I have seen it twice in this town, once in an old trapper and once in a mine worker. The first died. The second lived because his wife knew what I know." She said, "Give me an hour to pack. I will ride with you. It is 3 days back to Rosebud. We will not lose it." Standing Elk said, "Ma'am, Beaver Ford will not like a widow riding 3 days with a Lakota man." Wren said, "Standing Elk, Beaver Ford has liked nothing I have done in 14 months. I have stopped consulting Beaver Ford. Pack." She rode 3 days with Standing Elk to the Rosebud. She rode her old mare Peggy. She wore Amos's old riding coat and Amos's spare hat. She carried her herb bag and her mother's book, and a folded canvas roll of small, clean surgical tools Amos had made her 15 years back that she had never used. They came into the winter camp at Rosebud at dusk on the 3rd day. The band's healer, Gray Bear, met them at the lodge door. He was old. He looked at Wren without heat. He said, in careful English, "Ma'am." She said, "Sir, may I look at your chief?" He said, "Yes, I have done what I know." She said, "I am not here to replace you. I am here because a piece of lead has been in the shoulder of Sunrise Wolf for 11 years and needs to come out. I will do the work, and you will do the work with me. We will share the credit and the blame. That is the plain shape of what I am asking." Gray Bear looked at her a long moment. He said, "That is a plain speech, ma'am. He led her into the lodge. Sunrise Wolf lay on a pallet by the fire. He was thin. He was 58 and looked 70. His shoulder under the blanket was darkly swollen. Wren pressed lightly with the pad of a finger. She felt the small, hard shape of a bean of lead under the skin. She said, "Grandfather, may I speak?" Sunrise Wolf opened his eyes. He said in careful English, "You are the woman my grandson brought." She said, "I am." He said, "You are a widow." She said, "I am." He said, "You have looked." She said, "I have. There is a small piece of lead in your shoulder from the wound of 76. It has been poisoning you 11 years. The piece is close to the surface now. I would like, with Gray Bear's help, to take it out. It is a small cut of 1 inch. You will bleed a little. It will hurt. It will not kill you. After it is out, I will treat the wound and feed you the plants you need to draw the last of the lead from your blood. In 2 months, you will be a man of 58 again. In 4 months, you will ride." Sunrise Wolf looked at her. He said, "I will take that trade. Cut." She cut. Gray Bear held Sunrise Wolf's shoulder steady. She made the 1-inch cut with a scalpel Amos had ground for her 13 years back. She drew the small dark bean of lead from the wound with a pair of small forceps Amos had made in the same season. She dressed the wound with a poultice of yarrow and camas and moss and clean cotton. She stitched the cut with 6 small stitches of the fine silk thread Amos had also given her, because Amos, in his own quiet way, had understood who his wife was going to be. She fed Sunrise Wolf willow bark tea. She fed him wild garlic and honey. She fed him blue camas root and a thin broth of clean elk. She sat with him through the night. Gray Bear sat with her. By dawn, the fever the surgery had briefly raised had broken. Sunrise Wolf slept properly. By the 3rd day, he took his first plate of solid food in 4 months. By the 3rd week, he walked 100 yards down the trail from the lodge, with Gray Bear on one side and Standing Elk on the other. By the 7th week, he had put on 20 of the 40 pounds he had lost. Wren Copeland stayed at Rosebud 2 months. Standing Elk taught her 20 words of Lakota. Gray Bear taught her 4 new plants she had not known. She taught Gray Bear the trick of the fine silk thread. Sunrise Wolf, in the 9th week, when he was able to sit at the lodge fire and speak an hour, said to Wren over supper, "Widow of Amos Copeland." She said, "Grandfather." He said, "My grandson Standing Elk has watched you 2 months." She said, "He has." Sunrise Wolf said, "He has watched you the way a young man watches a woman he cannot say he watches. I am telling you this because I am the chief, and because I am not young enough to be shy about it. He is a good man. He is 26. He is unmarried. He is my grandson through my sister's daughter. I would ask you, plainly, whether you would consider staying at the Rosebud for a longer time. You would be welcome as a woman of the band. If in that longer time you and Standing Elk come to something, I will bless it. If you do not, I will bless your riding home. You have your husband's forge and your husband's mother's ginger cake. I understand that. I am asking anyway." Wren Copeland sat at the lodge fire and thought about Beaver Ford. She thought about the forge she could not run. The mother-in-law's ginger cake she had baked for 14 months, for no one but a rider who had not come. The town that had quietly withdrawn from her. She thought about Standing Elk, who had ridden 3 days at a hard pace for a plain white blacksmith's widow because a Presbyterian missionary had said her name, who had, on the ride back, told her about his father who had died at Wounded Knee, and about his mother who taught the girls of the band to weave, and about the small foal he had raised from a colt named Wind, who had, on the 2nd night by the trail fire, asked her if the moon was called by different names in her language, and had listened when she had told him yes and named 8. She said, "Grandfather Sunrise Wolf." He said, "Yes." She said, "Stayed 4. I will consider it. Give me 6 weeks." Sunrise Wolf said, 6 weeks. She stayed 6 weeks. She spoke with Standing Elk. She spoke with Standing Elk's mother. She spoke with Standing Elk's aunt. She spoke with Gray Bear. She rode out to a ridge alone on the 5th Sunday and sat there 4 hours and thought about Amos, who was in the ground at Beaver Ford, under a small stone she had cut herself, and who had been in her heart 11 years of marriage and 14 months of widowhood, and would always be. She decided that Amos would have blessed it. She told Standing Elk on the ridge at sunset that she would stay. Standing Elk said, "Wren Copeland." She said, "Standing Elk." He said, "Thank you." She said, "You are welcome." Sunrise Wolf married them in the winter camp at Rosebud at the beginning of December, in the ceremony of his people, with Gray Bear standing beside them. In April, when the pass opened, Standing Elk rode with Wren to Beaver Ford. The Presbyterian missionary of Fort Robinson met them at the small chapel of Beaver Ford at Wren's request and married them a second time in the Christian rite. He was very glad to do it. He preached a short, warm sermon about a woman who had cured his son of a wasting sickness and now saved a chief, and had, in his private opinion, been the most underappreciated widow in Beaver Ford's history. Beaver Ford, the town, upon hearing the story from the missionary, was somewhat embarrassed. The Circle T Ranch's foreman, an old friend of Amos's, rode out to Rosebud in June with his wagon to bring Wren her mother-in-law's ginger cake recipe box she had left behind. He apologized on behalf of the town in a plain, honest speech on Wren's porch step at Amos's forge cottage. Wren accepted the apology kindly. She kept the cottage as a guest house for any Rosebud rider who came through Beaver Ford. It stood a small, clean shrine to Amos and to the good she had learned in his shop. 2 years on a warm September evening at the Rosebud camp, Wren Copeland Standing Elk sat by Standing Elk's mother's fire, with Standing Elk beside her, and their small son, called both Amos and 2 Moons, 4 months old, asleep against Standing Elk's shoulder. Sunrise Wolf, 60 now, walked down the path from the great lodge and sat by them at the fire. He was strong and slow and did not, any longer, sleep in the afternoons. Sunrise Wolf said, "Daughter." Wren said, "Grandfather." Sunrise Wolf said, "The Presbyterian missionary sent word today by rider. He is well. He sends his regards." Wren said, "Please send them back with a jar of my honey." Sunrise Wolf said, "I will." He looked at the baby. He looked at Standing Elk. He looked at Wren. He said, "You did well by all of us." Wren said, "The good Lord did well by all of us." He said, "The plain woman with the forge cottage did well by all of us." Wren said, "Grandfather, please, do not say plain woman when you mean widow." Sunrise Wolf said, "You are right. Widow with the forge cottage did well by all of us." Wren laughed once. Standing Elk laughed. The baby did not wake. And Wren Copeland Standing Elk, who had been scrubbing the floor of a small forge cottage in Beaver Ford at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday morning when a young Lakota rider had stopped at her gate and would not for a full minute dismount, put her cheek against her husband's shoulder, and understood that the good slow country had, in its good slow way, given a Presbyterian missionary a plain reason to say her name at Fort Robinson, and had, on the strength of that plain name, given her back not only a chief's life and a young husband's love, but also the town's belated respect, and the whole rest of a household she had all but stopped believing was hers to hold. And so it had.